Hello and welcome to SUFCtv Live. I hope you're having a good Sunday evening. It's just about to be brightened up that even more. We've got Micky Stevens on as a guest tonight. I interviewed his good friend and ex-teammate Micky Joyce a few weeks back. That was a very enjoyable interview, so look forward to hearing more insight about this era and if you did watch that Micky Joyce stream, anonymous from Team was certainly Micky Stevens. So I haven't got anything from Micky Joyce in terms of anonymous questions for Micky Stevens, but it should be just as good as a show, if not even better. So sit back, relax, get involved in the live chat, and I'm just going to give Micky a ring now.
Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, Micky. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Firstly, Micky, before I get into how are you doing during lockdown at the moment?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm coping. There's lots worse, I think, than me. I've got my family, my immediate family, are all with me in the house. So although I actually chose to sort of stop myself from going out because my wife and dad sort of fit into the vulnerable bracket, so I decided on the 11th of March that I wouldn't set foot out, which was a week or so before the Prime Minister announced it. So I haven't been outside the front door since the 11th of March. But as I say, I've got the family making good use of sort of virtual quizzes, catching up with family on the Zoom videos. I actually started to do an exercise class with my daughter in the garden, so that's a first. But yeah, so we're okay. We're getting by. It's tough, but there's lots worse off than us.
Micky, as well, I just wanted to ask you, just go back to the Micky Joyce interview. What did you make of his answers to your anonymous questions?
Yeah, I thought he was a bit guarded on his replies, Joycey. He was under a little bit of pressure there. A few of his answers, he had a little bit of license to what he actually answered, but perhaps as the show goes on tonight, we might be able to, after 9 o'clock watershed, we might be able to shed a few more truths about him.
Great stuff. Right, Micky, I'm going to get into the interview now. So I want to go back all the way to your childhood. How did you fall in love with football? What are your earliest memories of the beautiful game?
Well, I was always a big follower of football. I mean, my mum, ever since Gwen was, big enough to walk, she used to take me over Clapham Common with sort of 5 or 6 footballs hanging on the pram, and I used to be just happy kicking a football about on Clapham Common. My dad fostered that interest. He ran a local football side for many years on a Sunday in the Midgham area where I lived. It was actually full of a lot of men on to play pro football at a good level. Mark Dennis was one of his, Mike at Chelsea, Trevor Dark. So I was always sort of, football was one of my loves at the time, and I was always helped with my mum and dad to always play it. But strangely enough, I was between that and tennis. I was actually not a bad tennis player when I was quite young, when I was 15, 16. I always enjoyed racket sports, and I was a good tennis player, believe it or not. I could get about the court, and I was sort of one or the other. I had professional coaching lessons for a little while. My claim to fame is that I beat Jeremy Bates before he became sort of Britain's number one. And it was sort of, I was being down the route of tennis, but it was not really something that we could deal with financially. Let's say that as a family, I found it difficult to attend all the coaching lessons and everything. So football was the one that I fell into. And while I was at school, I was playing for the school's county side, I think, one week, which was managed by current Sutton manager Ted Powell. He was a school teacher, and he asked me would I like to go training one evening to join him with Sutton United's semi-professional team. I'd actually always watched, I'd always gone to watch Tooting and Mitcham and Corinthian Casuals at the old Sandy Lane when I was young. I have to admit to the fact that I used to bunk in. I used to climb over the fence at the back and used to go and watch it. And for years, I used to watch them when I was really young. But Ted Powell asked me, and that's how it really started. I went down for a training session in sort of, 1976, 1977, when I was 16, 17. And it started from there, Tom.
So can you sort of talk me through your earliest seasons in Sutton? When did you first break into the first team?
Well, I think it was in that 1977 season. It was, as I say, I'd done the first training session, and all they did in those days, there was a black cinder track round the outside of the pitch, which was like a doubled as an athletics track. And the first training session I went to one Thursday evening, I managed to complete about 20 minutes of about an hour session, and I was sick as a dog over the side. I just thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. And I remember John Raines at the time, he took me to one side, and he said, look, we've all felt like this. He said, just need to stick at it. And I went on from there, and then in 1977, I think I was still at school, and we got drawn in the FA Cup against Tooting and Mitcham, who were a stone's throw from my school, Mitcham. And I can't remember who was. I think Keith Blunt at the time was the manager, and he said to me, "I'd like you to come along with the first team tomorrow. We're in the FA Cup at Tooting and Mitcham." And I said, "Oh right, okay." And I think I actually did play for the school, believe it or not, and joined up with Sutton in the afternoon for that FA Cup tie against Tooting, and I think he put me on when we were about 3-0 down. He put me on, I think, as a sub. I think that's how it worked. Sort of late in the day, we were getting hammered 3-0 when I made my debut in that game.
A couple of months later, you scored your first goal. It was an extra time win against Dulwich in the Surrey Senior Cup. Can you talk to me about that? Scoring your first goal for Sutton, that must have been a great feeling.
Yeah, I can actually remember that sort of quite vividly, because as people will probably go on to tell you, I wasn't the most prolific of goal scorers, but I do remember that first goal, and I think it was in extra time. We were at Dulwich 3-3 or something, and the manager again said to me, "Warm up, Mick," and there I was. I played for the school in the afternoon. I had all mud on my legs where I'd already played. I mean, it was ridiculous, really, if you compare it to today. On I went, having played sort of 60 minutes in the afternoon for the school, and Norman Mill broke away, had a shot parried, and I managed to follow in and tap it in from about 25 yards. And that was my first goal, and I thought, yeah, I could get the flavour of this.
So during your first season, I think you were in the Isthmian Premier, and we finished sixth. That was a pretty good finish. That.
Yeah, I think there was a group of us at the time. Joycey was one of them. Tony Raines. We had a lot of young lads that had come through what was then the reserve side, the suburban side, run by Ken Ireland. And he'd done a good job with us in grounding us and making sure we're ready to play sort of first team football. And a handful of us broke into the side that season, and we started to play regularly, and it was a good connection that we had. all of us were sort of mates. We used to go out midweek and weekends together, and somehow we ended up sort of finding ourselves into the first team at that time. I mean, it was a bit of an eye-opener at first. We had to be told what were the ways. As I said earlier, John Raines was a great one for that. He used to make sure you conducted yourself well on the pitch. Ricky Kidd is another old name. That, the experienced players used to sort of look after us and tell us how we should conduct ourselves. And that was a good start for us all. And then we started here, and before we knew where we were, I think, a lot of us that had grown up together were all part of that first team nucleus.
And do you think at the time there was a really good blend of experienced players and youngsters at the club?
Yeah, there definitely was. I mean, as I said, that's a handful, and there were other players in there who really, did good non-league players. I mean, when I always look back at them, I always think, how none of them actually went on to play higher level football. But I think it was just at that time they all had good jobs, and a lot of the players we in the next few years were seeing playing professional football in the equivalent of sort of in League One. Our experienced players were as good, if not better, than the majority of the players at that level. And they certainly was, they helped us get ourselves on the ladder. So there was a good blend of experienced old semi-pros and us youngsters thinking we knew everything, trying to make our way in the game.
So after finishing 6th in the 77-78 season, there was an 11th place finish. But something I want to touch on now is the Anglo-Italian Cup run. Can you talk to me about that from the start and how the team progressed through that? So it's great getting Micky Joyce's point of view, but it'd be great to hear what you thought of that run as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very vivid memory actually from the Anglo-Italian. I mean, I think we actually ended up playing it in it 3 times. The first time we won it, and it was the first. I think it was the first time I'd ever been abroad. They said we're going away with a football club. I went over to my mum and dad and they said, "What? You staying away?" I said, "Yeah, we're going away for a week." And we played home and away. I think they came. Two of their teams came over and played us. I can't remember the exact teams that were in it the first time round, but there was another English side in it and 2 Italian sides. And we went out there and it was a real great week. I can remember we played in. They were better stadiums. They were more. The attendances were bigger at those games, and I think their standard was a little bit higher than our standard. But fortunately, that first tournament, we played home and away. I'm sure some of the people will know the scores, and we eventually got through to the final and went back there to play Chieti, I think it was, in the final. Me and Joycey, I think that day was sub, and they put me on with about 20 minutes to go. I don't know whether you've heard that story, Tom. That's a famous story. The manager, bless him, Keith Blunt, asked me to go and warm up. It was about 25 minutes, half hour to go, and he said, "Right, go and warm up, Micky, going on." And I went to warm up, and there was like a running track around the outside of the pitch. And I engaged with a group of the Sutton United supporters who were sort of leaning over the barrier. And I was just merrily chatting away to them, like doing a few stretches here and then. And I lost track of time 10 minutes. And all of a sudden I heard Keith Blunt bellow down the line to me, "Do you want to go on or not?" And I'd forgotten all about it, and I quickly came back in, got my gear off, and went on. And we saw the game out for 2-1. But that was a great experience. We carried the trophy. I can remember going around the Coliseum the following day, and we was carrying the trophy around the Coliseum. So that was a good day. And we went back a couple of years times we went, I think I probably personally felt that I sort of had made my name into the first team. We got through to the final, and we drew a game in the final in Italy, 0-0. And I know I'd played really well, and for some reason I put my hand up as taking one of the penalties. I think whatever age I was, 18, 19, but I just said, yeah, I'll have one. And I remember, I'm not sure it was a third or fourth penalty, everybody was scoring. There was quite a big crowd, and we were going from the halfway line, and I bowled up to take my penalty, and I thought, yeah, I can do this. And I remember as I was walking from the centre circle, like to the penalty spot, I could feel my legs just turn into jelly, and I thought, oh, I'm not sure about this. I don't know whether I made the right thing. I struck a good penalty, but the goalkeeper made a good save low to his right, and unfortunately that was the only penalty that was missed, and we got beat as a result of that. So I absolutely cried my eyes out in the changing room. Was consoled by John Raines again, who seemed to always be a mentor of mine. And yeah, but I felt then, you know, people were telling me, Mick, you've really come of age in this tournament, and I really felt as though I was at that level then. So that was really where I felt that I'd not made it, but I'd become squad regular.
James King's just put a question in. What drink was put in the cup when you won it in '79?
Well, I have no idea, but it was alcoholic. I can tell you that. And probably knowing some of the other players that were in that side that day, I probably never got too much near it anyway, because there was a few drinkers that were heavier than me. But yeah, it was alcoholic. We actually visited in another trip, we visited Vatican Square, and we tried to be drinking around there, but were swiftly told that you weren't supposed to be doing that around there. But yeah, no, it was alcoholic, Tom.
So Keith Blunt actually went to Malmo after they lost in the European Cup final to Nottingham Forest, and Barry Williams came in. What were your first impressions of Barry when he walked into the club?
Well, it was different. It was very different, and we soon. He was an excellent coach, Barry. He made you think about the game, and one of the things that he got us all, the first team squad, I can remember him getting us in at the end of the season. We all used to go down, and he used to have this way of us negotiating our contract for the next season, and he used to just blind us with words. We used to go in one at a time, and he used to say this, that, and the other, and used to come out and say, what does he actually send up? That we got no pay increase, we were on the same pay, but he just had this way with words that he would baffle you with science. As everybody knows, he would sort of regularly quote Kipling and Shakespeare now and then, and you know, a lot of the players never knew what was going on. But I mean, I loved Barry. He was great. He gave you an opportunity to express yourself on the pitch. I think I've said this, but I remember him saying to me, I want you to conduct yourself well on the pitch, Abel. And he said, I want you to be a winner, first and foremost, but I want you to conduct yourself well on the pitch and off the pitch and represent the club and yourself in the right way. And that stuck with me. And he certainly had that way of making you want to play for him and giving you a bit of freedom. One of the things he did as well, Tom, he sent the majority, nearly all the first team, on their coaching course when we were very young. So we was like 20, 21, and he sent us all on our coaching courses. So I actually did my first level coaching course and the equivalent of the B licence coach when I was playing. We did it through the summer holidays and part of the season, and all the players went on the same course. And it sort of opened your mind a little bit more to what was being coached into you in training sessions at the club. And that was just something that he did that I thought was really good. And we seemed to understand each other and understand what was being asked of us a lot more. But he was a very good manager. I was fortunate enough to play under a lot of very good managers, but Barry was right up there.
So the team came fourth in 1980 and fifth the following year. But that following year when he came fifth, that season will be remembered for the run in the FA Trophy. So can you talk to me about your memories in that competition that year?
Yeah, what was that? 81, was it, Tom?
I think it was, yes, 81 was when the big FA Trophy run was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember a lot of the games in the earlier rounds, but what I do remember, I remember us going to Aylesbury. We kept going backwards and forwards to Aylesbury midweek. I think the game just kept getting called off, and we was going there Monday. It was called off, waterlogged. We went back there Tuesday. It was called off, and we just kept going. We eventually got this game played, and if my memory serves me right, we were absolutely under the cosh for the whole of the game, and they just kept bombarding us with corners and crosses. And John Raines, again, I mention him again, he just headed everything away, and I think he got us through that quarter-final stage or whatever. He got us through that round, and I think then we started to believe that we could win it. And the semi-final, I think we went to Bangor, went up on the train, we were 2-0 down, and it looked a bit forlorn in a two-legged game for us. And then it was a really windy day, and somehow there was a wind-assisted goal, and then a late equaliser, and all of a sudden the game was 2-2. We had the home leg to come the next week. I'll tell you a story about that, Tom. We came home for that, and I thought we got a real chance here of getting to Wembley. And we played the home leg, and Barry phoned me on the morning of the game, and he said, I'm not going to play you today, Mick. I'm going to leave you out. I'm going to play someone else. And I was absolutely gutted. I went to the game, obviously, and supported the lads, but I was really upset that I wasn't part of that. But that was where I thought you got to be part of the team here. And I thought we went on to win the second leg, I think, comfortably 4-1 or something like that. And I thought then I'm going to make sure that I am picked for the final. And that was a way of sort of telling me that it was a bit of a wake-up call, if you like, that you've always got to perform, you've always got to be consistent. I don't think I was left out for any particular reason. I think he just went with a different way. We won that game, and then from then on, I made sure that he had to pick me for that final. And even though we had a lot of experienced players ready for that final, I got myself picked for that final. Disappointed, I hit the woodwork, I think, twice in the final. I came off absolutely cramped up with about 10 minutes to go. Bishop Stortford scored in injury time to win the game, and that was a tough day. It was just one that was missed off the list. I would have liked to have taken an FA Trophy final. But it was a great day. It was a great day out, a great time, and it was a start of really what was beginning to be a good period for the club. We had a settled side, and it was a start of a good time for the club.
Just one last question on that final. Micky Joyce was missing, so if one of our main men, Micky, was playing, do you think it could have been a different story that day?
Well, much as it guts me to say it, I think we would have won had Mick been playing. I'm sure he'd tell you the same story. No disrespect to whoever played on the game. I mean, Micky Cornwall will have a great story. It's not one I'd share with everyone now, but Mick played in that game, and he perhaps shouldn't have played in that game. He played really well, and Mick, I love him to death. He told everyone after that he wasn't very well. on that day, if we'd have had someone that could have just stuck the ball in the net, I think we would have won that. And Joycey was certainly someone who could put the ball in the back of the net.
So moving on to the next season now. So this is the 1981-82 season. It looked like we were going to win the title that season, but Leytonstone and Ilford, they were under Dagenham Redbridge, current Dagenham Redbridge manager at the time, John Still. They came back from a long way back to finish as champions. What went wrong that season?
I don't know really. I think it was our first go at sort of being right up there, and perhaps we needed that to help us in the future for taking the titles as we did and going on to win some of the bigger games. But we were right up there, and I think Leytonstone and Ilford, whoever they were called at the time, and a lot of experienced players themselves that had experienced a similar title push, and we hadn't quite had a title push before, and I think that was probably where I don't think it was necessarily anything drastically went wrong with us. I think that Leytonstone and Ilford just had a little bit more experience and a little bit more know-how to see them over the line that year. But I think it gave everybody a taste of it, and we thought that we can take this if we're just a little bit more consistent.
But then after that, then came the 82-83 season, and it was the cup treble. So can you talk to me about your memories of that season?
What was that one?
The 1982-83 cup treble season.
Oh right, yeah. In those days, Tom, we had lots of different cups.
Yeah.
We used to be in every cup: Surrey Seniors, Hitachi Cup, League Cups, everything. And in those days, I was looking at the team, the squads that we had. You nearly always, there was like a squad of about 16 players, and they all played like over 40 or 50 games in the season. So we never really juggled the side around. We just sort of, a couple of players had a rest now and then, but it was nearly always the same side. So we were always fielding strong sides. But I can't actually remember who those games were, but I remember when we won the 3 cup competitions that season. But it's always nice to win a trophy, and again, I think that helped us, winning those if you like lesser cup competitions stood us in good stead for perhaps the bigger fish which was to come.
Yeah, so in that 82-83 season in the league, we finished 5th, and in the season after, we made a very small progression up the table. We finished 4th. So as you said, just getting on to the championship winning season shortly, but just the season before that, it really felt like we were getting somewhere, and we were, as you said, we were building something.
Yeah, definitely.
And let's go on to those championship winning seasons now. So the 84-85 season, what do you remember about that season? Finally winning the league title.
Well, what I remember about it, Tom, is that we finally won the league title, but we actually knew a little bit before we actually won it that the club weren't going to commit to us going up, and that was a difficult one to absorb. I kindly got Mark Freight, club historian, who won't mind me telling you, to send me over a list of that squad for that 84-85 season. And I was just looking at it now. I'm just looking. Paul McKinnon scored 52. Micky Joyce got 29 goals. The rest of the side, there's just like a handful of players: John Raines and Tony Raines, Nigel Golly, Mark Golly, it was Paul Rogers. That was a good side, and I think that season we had a lot of goals in the side. We used to provide the goals for those two, McKinnon and Joyce, and we managed to keep them 2 fit. But we knew it was one of those seasons where you go into a game almost half knowing that you're going to win it. When you've got people who score goals at the top end of the field, then you know you've got a good chance. But the overriding memory of that is that going into the game, I think against Worthing, where we could have won it, it was leaked that the club weren't going to, for whatever reason, they weren't going to take up the position in the next league if we were to win it. Obviously that was something that they never took that decision lightly, and but that was a difficult one at the time.
So actually, going into that summer, what was the mood like going into that summer, knowing that you put all that hard work in and the club weren't going up? Was it feel like that was just a season wasted, or did the lads take it okay and think, right, we'll just go again for next season? Hopefully, the club will take the option in the next season.
Well, I think there was a number of things, Tom. I think the club had sort of intimated that they would, if we won the league the next season, that they probably would. They just needed to prepare themselves, so it wasn't a case of that. I think there was a few of us that were in jobs where we had like 9 to 5 plus jobs, probably breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, thinking, well, that's not bad. We've won the league, we've got the medal, but we haven't got to do all the travelling. I think there was a few of us that would have liked to do it, to experience it, but in those days there was just as much travelling as there is now. I mean, there was a lot of train journeys on a Saturday morning, sort of 8 o'clock in London. But I think it was a belief that we could do it, and we thought we'll go and do it again. When you're winning games and winning leagues, and you feel you've got a chance to win it again the next year, that's a good feeling. And so I think it was we weren't downbeat for too long. We were a bit flat at the time when we were told we weren't going up, but time the next season come, we were ready to go again, and so it proved.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, James King just put in the comments, he thinks that the ground was not up to spec in that 84-85 season, so that's why the club had to turn down promotion.
Okay, yeah, he may well be right on that. So, that was it. I mean, the club has always been so well run.
Yeah.
And it is still so well run. So, as I say, they wouldn't have taken that decision lightly. So, I'm sure that was probably the underlying reason. So, it gave us a chance to make the ground up to standard and just let us do it again.
Yeah, certainly, and that's exactly what you guys did. Came top of league again. Obviously, we got the promotion. Can you talk to me about that season? Do you think actually that helped the squad as well? Maybe having that extra season just to develop a bit more together in the Isthmian League. And did you think it was also a better title win than the previous season?
Yeah, I think it was. Tom. I think we knew that we could do it, and it was just like we needed to prove everybody. Again, we're Sutton of one season wonder in winning it. I think if my memory serves me right, I think Joycey had gone to Maidstone. He decided to jump ship and have a go at professional football and went to Maidstone. Lenny Dennis came in that season, I think. I'm looking at the sheet here, and Paul McKinnon got 53 goals again. Lenny Dennis got 32 goals. And Mark Golly got 26 goals from midfield and the defending position. That's an unbelievable amount of goals. I mean, Mark Golly again was a terrific player for Sutton through the handful of seasons where he was a terrific player. I used to just make sure I got the delivery in for corners, but he was such a aggressive header of the ball at set plays. Paul McKinnon would score goals from everywhere, and Lenny Dennis, just like another centre forward, who was like a battering ram, and got 32 goals. And around us, we had the same players essentially from the season before. We had John and Tony Raines. I think Ron Fearon had come in that season in goal, who many of the supporters might remember. We had Roger Mackay and Steve. I mean, Steve Bangs, I still see Steve Bangs every Friday. Well, not now. Not now we're in lockdown.
Yeah.
But I see Steve every Friday. I play badminton with him every Friday. Steve and Roger Mackay were two fullbacks. They never went across the halfway line because they had me and someone else playing wide midfield. We used to just do all the forward play, and they used to defend. It was like, no, you don't need to track him back. Tony Raines was like a protector to me. It's funny, it's a different way now. The modern day fullback has got to be an aggressive, attacking fullback, and so the game has evolved. In those days, Tony Raines, Roger Mackay, Steve Bangs, they were such just good defenders that they wouldn't allow me, if you like, they'd be lucky if they got me to come back to do much defending at all. They'd say, no, on you go, you do your work in the attacking areas of the field. And Phil Dawson came into the side then alongside Paul Rogers and Mark Golly's brother, Nigel Golly. I think that midfield was like every week. It was like Paul Rogers, Phil Dawson, myself and Mark Golly. It was just the same four on the team sheet the whole week. The whole season, and we knew each other's games, and we just got better and better. And that was a good season, that one.
So moving into the conference now, we had a really good season coming back up to the conference. We finished 7th. We had one of the higher goal differences in the league, and we scored a lot of home goals as well. So that was a great first season in the conference.
Yeah, it was. What was our finish position, Tom?
We finished 7th on 68 points. He had a plus 30 goal difference, scored 52 own goals. Some really good stats here about that season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was the newness of it all as well. I mean, we'd obviously, as often happens with someone at the side that goes up, they carry on that camaraderie. They know each other's play. It was essentially the same side again, I think. We bonded even more by going on the trains and the coaches. I mean, I'll just tell you, it was so different in those days. Obviously, Saturdays, we all used to get up and get on the trains up there at 8 o'clock and do the away trips. The midweek games were just games like I used to have a job in London. I used to work for a bank. I used to work for NatWest Bank in the city. And I used to work full on. Used to be up there early in the morning, and most days other than football, home late at night. And I was like dashing out of work, getting someone to cover for me so that I could run to get a train at Waterloo to go to places like Bath, up into the Midlands for games. It was just like phenomenal, really. And then I'd be getting on the coach or the train coming back in the evening, getting back in doors about 3 o'clock in the morning and getting up to go to work at like 6, 7 o'clock. But I think we took that into that season, and it was a good season. I remember, probably some of the supporters will remember this, I think we needed to win our last game to finish something like 7th or 6th in the season.
Yeah.
Barry Williams read out the team that day, and there was one defender in it. And we had literally a goalkeeper and 9 full-on attacking players and 1 defender. And we played, I think, Northwich Victoria last game of the season. Everyone looked around at each other thinking, well, who's playing where? And he just decided to play in a one-off game. We couldn't go any lower in the league. So he tried it. We won the game 1-0. But yeah, there was good memories. I mean, we had some good memories in that division. It was just tough because we all had jobs at the time.
Yeah.
It was tough keeping it going.
So moving on to the next season, again we had a really respectable position league. Just finished 1 place below in 8th, but of course that season is remembered for the first of our 2 great FA Cup runs in that very short period. So I want to talk to you about the FA Cup run in the 87-88 season. So yeah, what are your memories of the early rounds before we get on to the big Middlesbrough game?
The early rounds. Well, I think we went to. I know we went to Wivenhoe, Redhill, Bromley in a replay, Basingstoke. I mean, they were all tough games.
Yeah.
And I think we were winning them, and then thinking, hang on, we've got a chance here of getting through. And I think when we beat Basingstoke 3-0, we then drew Aldershot. It was really the first time that, Sutton had, for quite a while since before the Leeds game, obviously back in 1960, we'd drawn the Leeds side. And I remember Aldershot coming that day. I mean, it was another one where the pitch was terrible. But if you saw that game on video, we absolutely battered Aldershot, who were, I'm not sure whether they were a League One or a League Two equivalent, probably League Two equivalent. But we scored 3 goals that day, and I think player by player, we were better than them throughout the side. And that's what I was saying earlier to you. A lot of our experienced players, when I looked at them, I just thought, why are these players not playing for teams like that? Because they are just better than those players. But that was a terrific win, Aldershot 3-0.
So again, as we progressed through that competition, was there real belief in that team that we could just carry on going further and further? And again, we had a really good league season as well. So that must be one of your best seasons, obviously. And again, after the Aldershot win, it was the second round. So we were moving that bit closer to the glorious third round of the FA Cup.
Yeah, that's right. Was it Peterborough the next game?
Yep, it was.
Yeah, Peterborough away 3-1, and again, game well, and then I think we got a TV game against Middlesbrough. I was telling Sahal about this earlier in the season. The Middlesbrough game is just an example of something. We had the home game 0-0, and I was in London sort of till about 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. I wasn't drinking or anything. I was just there on a work function, and then went to see a show in London, and never got home till like 2 o'clock in the morning. But that's how it was for a lot of us. And we set up, and I think it was the first Middlesbrough game where we had all the attention of the TV cameras, that really the buzz for that group of players in that time era thought, we can do well in these competitions. And that 1-1, wasn't it, at home?
Yes, it was. It was.
1-1 at home. Mark Golly scored a late equaliser to take us up to what was Ayrton Pub, I think, then. We went up again. I finished work half day, got the train from London, and we went up, stayed overnight in York, I think. And as everyone knows, we got beat in extra time to a late goal there off the pitch. But that was a nice feeling, well in that competition, and I think it set us up for perhaps what was to come in the following years.
Yeah, just on that Middlesbrough game, do you think that we could have got through? It was very tight, both games. Do you think, maybe we could have done it? Actually, also, a tie set up for us if we'd beat Middlesbrough would have been Everton away. So that would have been that was an amazing tie set up for us. I think Everton away it would have been. So it was unlucky that we couldn't get through Middlesbrough, especially both games were so tight.
Well, I think we hit the crossbar before they scored. I think at the end of 90 minutes, I might be wrong, or it might have been in extra time, I don't know, but we haven't remember floating a ball in and Nigel Golly headed the crossbar before they actually scored. But there wasn't much in that game, though. But yeah, it was a good experience, and as you say, it just sort of set us up for knowing that we had a bit of belief that we could beat better sides and league sides.
Before we get on to the 88, 89 Cup run, there's a few questions in the comments. Firstly from Selwyn Greenfrith, hope I pronounced your name right. Whatever happened to Little B Eyed Glass Max? Not sure you get that question.
Repeat that one, Tom.
So Selwyn Greenfrith said, what happened to Little B Eyed Glass Max? Yeah, I was a bit confused about that one myself. Anyway, Mark Morris next. Who, in your opinion, was the best Sutton United player that you ever played alongside during your many years in the squad?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd say Paul Rogers. I'd say Paul Rogers. Paul started out as a forward. He was a skillful centre forward. Barry Williams brought him back into central midfield. And what we hadn't realised is that he had just a terrific engine, and he was able to get about the pitch all day long. And his ability on the ball helped him. Normally you get a central midfield player that can get about the pitch all day long, but perhaps he hasn't got the little bit of, ball skills or whatever. But I think Paul Rogers was right up there. But there was a lot of players across the period. I mean, I played with Efan Ikoku, who you got later in the week.
Yeah.
I mean, Efan Ikoku, I think I played 3 or 4 games with him. You could see in the first game that, we played the ball over the top and he was like 10 yards quicker than everyone else. Got it down and finished it and thought, wow, this bloke's going to be a good player. Paul McKinnon was another terrific goal scorer. Joycey, we all laughed at it. Joycey was a terrible player. He's a terrible player, but an unbelievable goal scorer. He just could score goals from anywhere. He'll probably admit himself he wasn't the most technically gifted of players, but if you needed someone to score a goal for you, I know that he would have been my bet to have someone score a goal for you. But there's a lot of players. But I think I'd have to say Paul Rogers right up there as someone who used his ability then to go on and make the Football League player that he was.
I just touched on, he said, obviously, Micky Joyce was a great goal scorer. Do you think that's the genius of the way Barry Williams set up the side? Obviously, just for him just to be in the box and score the goals and let everyone else, include obviously players like yourself, do all the magic creative work.
Yeah, to a degree. But I mean, to be fair, Mick would always shout his own case. He was always like, managers were always trying to get on at him to work hard and track back and defend from the front. And Mick always had this way that he said, look, I can't keep doing all the work up front as well and then be nice and sharp, finish things in the box. So Mick had quite it was quite an attitude that he wanted to be a goal scorer. And he would run everything down for you and chase everything down when it was in the forward areas. But he used to have a moan, Mick, when he was asked to defend it. But perhaps that's why he was a goal scorer. He was one of the best goal scorers.
Right, moving on to the argued FA Cup run we had. It's up for debate whether it's this one or the one we had a few years ago, but this one certainly is right up there in that top 2. Again, as I said with the other cup run, obviously there's the big journey we need to have. So can you talk to me about the journey we had in the 88-89 cup run in the earlier rounds?
Yeah, I think the first round that we picked up was Walton and Hersham. I remember playing them at home, and we drew 1-1, and there was an incident in that game. Michael Cornwall broke his leg in the first half, and he was carried off with his leg strapped, and we conducted the half-time team talk with him yelling of pain in on the physio table with a broken leg. So that sticks out in my mind. And the second half in a game where we should have won comfortably, I think everyone was a bit sort of numbed by what happened to Micky in the first half, and we won the second leg 3-0 comfortably. We then went on to Dagenham, I think, won 4-0 at their ground, which was a really good win. And then Aylesbury, again, away from home, I think. We won that 1-0, and then I think we all got ourselves back. I'm pretty sure the draw for that round was Saturday evening in those days. Might even have been on Match of the Day, Saturday evening. And I can remember sort of sitting round the telly with all my mates and us drawing out Coventry, and everyone looked at each other and said, well, that's a good draw. And then the build-up of that game, we had, I don't know, 4 or 5, just kept building up the momentum with the TV and everything. But, yeah.
Did you feel as well that it was at Gandry Lane that was even better? And although obviously it'd be great for lads to have a big day out at, a massive club's ground, but did you feel the fact it was our own supporters and Gandry Lane was going to be packed to the rafters, and did you feel that would just give us that? Did you feel like when the draw was made coming into that game, it would give us that little bit of an extra edge, maybe over Coventry?
Well, I think it's been clear, like it's been documented over time. I mean, Coventry, what was they, FA Cup season before? Was it?
Coventry winning the FA Cup. It was 87. They beat Spurs. Yeah, so a couple of years before.
So pretty much 12, 18 months before.
Yeah.
We'd all seen Coventry City win the FA Cup, and sort of thought, they're obviously a good side. But I think we'd seen that our pitch was a factor. In those days, non-league grounds weren't as good as they are now, and so we knew that professional team, a high-ranking team, coming to Gander Green Lane that time of year was likely to be a bit of a leveller. We also had the fact that we'd had a little bit of experience the year before, and I think we knew we were a good side. And then when we got to the game, the day of the game, I think the fact that we'd actually 6,000 in there, it seemed a lot more than 6,000 that were in there. And I think there was a real belief. I can remember people saying before, hang on, we got a chance in this. There's a lot of factors going our way here. The pitch is a quag. We're a big crowd are behind us. You could see the Coventry players turning up and going out to warm up on the pitch thinking, I'm not sure about this. So I think, we weren't just young 17, 18-year-olds. We were all experienced non-league players by then. And I think we just felt we had a good chance.
And again, with that feeling of having a good chance, how did Williams want you guys to approach the game? What was his last words before you walked out onto Gander Green Lane turf?
Well, his last words were probably some quote by Kipling, Shakespeare after the game. But certainly before the game, we had a guy. It was a good friend of mine, Dave Wall, who was Barry's assistant, and he went to watch Coventry at the time, and he came back saying, and I remember this to this day, he said, they're a good side. He said, we've got a good chance. If it's raining and the pitch is bad, we need to get our set plays right. And we, as is well documented, we went out on the morning of the game, Saturday, into the park. We all set up to try and perform our set plays. The Collingwood Road wreck was absolutely worse than it is now. There was, piles of dogs everywhere, and we just couldn't have It was just mud sloshing about everywhere. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, Barry Williams said, right, that's enough. He said, we can't do anything out here. He said, it's one of those where hopefully it'll be all right in the night. We knew our set plays. We worked really hard on our set plays. Everybody knew where we were to run, where I was to deliver the ball. Everybody knew what was what. And we scored loads of goals throughout the season. Knew that if we had good players in the air, we could get a ball into a good area, and we knew that we had a chance if that was the case. And, it really did come true on the day.
Yeah, certainly. We weren't overwhelmed at all. And do you feel like getting the first goal in that game as well from Tony Raines, the skipper, was important for the nerves of the team and the crowd as well?
Yeah, most definitely. I think if Coventry had scored first, that would have settled them down, and I think that would have been a difficult one for us to bring back. But I think the crowd were behind us. We had a little bit of momentum. We had a few corners in succession, and then of course, when Tony scored that first goal, it was from like a training ground routine, which we'd spent like 5 minutes kicking the ball everywhere in the wrong place in the park. For that to come was great. I remember Tony after we scored the goal, and I always joke with Tony about this. Is like he said just because I used to play in front of Tony I was playing in front of Tony that day, and he said right, mate, he said just tuck yourself in for 5 or 10 minutes. Now we're 1 up. Just take the sting out of the game. I said no, that's all right, Tony. I've got this. Don't worry. I've got them on the back foot. I know what I'm doing. So he let me have 5 or 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden they started to get on top.
Yeah.
And he came over to me and he said a little, not as politely as, but he said, Mick, he said, get yourself back in here, give me a hand, because it was like, it was the Alamo for the rest of the game almost. After we got our second goal and went 2-1 up, I think as everyone knows, in another life, Coventry would have scored 4 or 5.
Yeah, obviously David Phillips equalised really early in that second half. Yeah. So again, we responded only 7 minutes later. So it just shows how vital that quick response was. Do you feel if that game had gone on and Coventry would have, really packed us in? Do you think they would? As you said, they would have just broke us down, likely to break us down in the end. So again, that quick response, going back 2-1 in front, just rocked Coventry. They probably thought they were going to go on and win it when they got the equaliser.
Most definitely, Tom. I think in as much as the first goal was really important, to get the second one, to go in front again, Coventry must have thought, hang on, we're in a game here, and they obviously couldn't start stroking the ball around because the pitch didn't pick that. We held on at the end, but it was a great experience. Can't get away from us, can you? So we dine out on that for the rest of our life, don't we? So there you go.
Certainly. Moving on, next round, we had Norwich. Actually, before we go on to that Norwich game, what were the celebrations like, when everyone ran on the pitch, and what was that night like when we beat Coventry 2-1?
Well, believe it or not, I went straight home. I went in the bar quickly and had a quick drink, and then I went straight home because my daughter wasn't very old at the time. We had a young child, so I went home to help my wife sort my daughter out. I really should be back at the club here. It's going to be one of those special nights. So I got a pass from my family. They allowed me to go back to the club, and I went back to the club and we watched Match of the Day. See the game come on the telly, see our manager sitting on there with quoting all his Shakespeare and his Kipling all over again. It's just surreal, really, Tom. It was a surreal day.
One of the greatest days in the club's history. So moving on to the next round at Norwich. What were your feelings coming to that game? Obviously away from home this time. Was it one of those games where we just went into it thinking, right, just stay in it for as long as possible and maybe nick a goal or get the replay back at Gander Green Lane?
No, I think if truth be known, Tom, a moment, Norwich obviously had seen this. They made sure that their pitch was in good condition. That didn't take too much for them to do that. They had international players on the pitch, and they were wised up by the fact that we've done. And I think they probably knew that if they moved the ball out, and probably that day, a lot of the Norwich players showed why they were professional players.
Yeah.
And we weren't quite ready for that from a fitness. Of our players couldn't have gone on to be, in that bracket had they had, fitness and the same sort of training. But on that day, the professionalism of Norwich showed, and our little moment in the sunlight ended.
Yeah, Norwich were a top four side in the first division at the time, so yeah, their class certainly showed that afternoon. What are your memories of the Sutton fans that day, though? Because obviously we got beat heavily, but it still must have been a great day out for the fans, and of course they must have appreciated all the hard work you put in, all the players and the staff put in to get the club that far in the FA Cup that season.
Yeah, well, financially it helped the club. There was a lot of financial reward for what we'd done. I mean, from a personal note, I think I worked in a branch of the bank, as I said, in London. I think about 25, 30 of them hired 2 minibuses and took them to Norwich to watch the game. I had pretty much every member of my family at the game. Was able to see them in the crowd, and it was a terrific day out. The scoreline was a big factor on it. So, but that was it. The moment was there, but that was one step too far for us.
So obviously something very serious happened on the way back from that Norwich game. Your family were involved in a bad car accident, and your wife Jackie was seriously injured, and you had to stop playing for several years because obviously, to look after her. And can you share to the viewers as much as you want to about that situation?
No, I don't mind, Tom. I don't. It's not really something I do sort of labour on and talk too much about. But it was a life moment for me. My wife, car accident. My daughter was in the car and her mum and dad on the way home from Norwich. I came back on the coach, got back to a telephone call telling me that I needed to go back. I didn't know quite what happened, so I had to drive back with my dad and my uncle. And as we were driving back, it was obviously really foggy everywhere. Got back to Norwich and realised the extent of the injury. And obviously, my wife particularly needed a lot of care and attention for a good few months afterwards. It's not something that probably people that are new to the club probably wouldn't know that. It's not. I'm quite happy talking about it, but it's not something that I broadcast. We get on with our life. My wife was very seriously, in a very poor position for 2 or 3 months, and we had a lot of hard work to do to get her back to where we are now. My daughter was thankfully okay. She was strapped into a car seat, and my wife's mum and dad lived on to live a good life. And my wife is fine, and she's not fine. She has some residual, injuries from that, but we try and live our life in as normal way as we can. Football has remained a bit of an outlet for me. My wife supports me, so does my family support me in all that I do in football. But yeah, it was a life-changing moment, Tom. But
and can you talk to me about when you eventually got back playing again with Tooting, and how was that?
Yeah, it wasn't. I wasn't out. I didn't stop playing for actually that long. Actually,
Okay.
I moved. I think Frank can give you that information. But what happened was we moved back in with my mum and dad for a little while we had some adaptations done to our house, and I was just trying to keep myself fit, running sort of around Mitcham Common. And a friend of mine that was manager of the Mitcham at the time, because obviously I'd had to stop playing at Sutton, just running around Mitcham Common, and said, do you fancy having a game every now and then? And I said, yeah, I don't mind. I wouldn't mind a game. I said, I don't think I can commit to training or anything. And then for 3 seasons, I played every game for Tooting and Mitcham, who was just around the corner. I actually went to a lot of training sessions, and I think it was good for us all, everybody. And it ended up, it was funny, Tooting and Mitcham played Sutton in a friendly.
Yeah.
And Sutton United managers at the time, Larry Pritchard, said to me, do you fancy coming back? We could do with someone like you, even at your age, playing in the middle of the park. We're in a bit of a pickle. We're in a sort of a bit of a relegation. And I thought, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. So I rejoined and saw that season out and kept us up. And it was just nice then to really, I thought, I don't know what age I was then, it was about 1996, something like that, wasn't it? And I got offered, would I like to get involved in the coaching side of the club with what was the Capital League side at the time, which was a really good league where you used to play West Ham, Wimbledon, a lot of really good sides, used to play their reserves and youngsters, and that was really good. I had some really good times doing that. Had some good players come through. Mark Watson played for us, who went on to be a top Sutton United player, and then went on into the pro game. A lot of other good youngsters come through, and it just got me interested in being involved in the coaching side. So I did that for a few years at Sutton, while John Rains and Tony Rains were at the management helm. Did a few years just drifting around, helping a few friends of mine coaching-wise, and didn't think I would sort of really get back involved in it. Out of the blue, I got a call from Bruce when Paul got to the club. I think it was 2008, something like that.
Yeah.
Bruce phoned me up and said, we've got a new manager. I said, yeah, I know. So I used to keep in contact with the club. I used to come and watch a lot of the games. And he said he's got some new views for the club. Wanted to take the club forward. They were really on a low ebb. They dropped down the divisions, and the club was looking in a pretty sorry state. And he said, would you just come down and meet him? And I went to meet Paul, and he was such an infectious person. He asked me whether I would do this particular job of scouting and preparing reports on the opposition. And I thought, actually, that fits in nicely with my sort of lifestyle. Doing that for him, and I really enjoyed it. We set up a good sort of report system on players and the opposition, and I really enjoyed doing that with Paul and Alan Payne, and obviously Steve McKim. Really enjoyed that with them, and we obviously finished up by getting ourselves promoted back. And guys asked me eventually to sort of just come into the changing room. He said, you pretty much know the leads inside out now. How do you fancy coming on board in the changing room? And I must admit, I really enjoyed the time there with Paul, all the people that he had with him. Paul Telfer, Ian Baird particularly. I really enjoyed working with them. Sort of made you feel wanted.
Yeah.
And Matt Gray has done exactly the same thing. It's difficult for me to commit myself absolutely totally every hour and every week to football. I do as much as I can, but certainly Paul made me feel part of that setup, and Matt most certainly has continued to make me feel part of that as well.
Yeah, it was a great setup under Paul Doswell, with the way we progressed through the leagues, and also the way, obviously, we had our own FA Cup run with Dos as well. Getting to the fifth round, we went one step even further than the 1989 side that you were part of. Actually, how did that FA Cup run compare to that 1989 one, I should say?
Well, it was so very different, really, for me, because like it was just, it's completely different. There's no substitute for playing. I think everybody will tell you that. But I did really enjoy the cup run that took us past Cheltenham, Wimbledon, Leeds, and then on to Arsenal. I just thought that was terrific. I mean, it was just so incredible seeing us match those sides, and the atmosphere around the club was just great. I mean, Paul was such an infectious manager. The way he drummed up all the enthusiasm amongst everybody, it was just really good to see it from that side. A completely different side. When you're a player, you're absolutely engrossed in it, and you're looking after yourself, really. But you're just sort of, getting yourself to the game and playing. But on the other side of it, it was just so enjoyable, and I think that was, every bit as good a cup run in a much different way. It certainly is enjoyable for me. Seeing it, I didn't expect anything, at that stage to come. Certainly in the first round, I didn't think that, a few months later we'd be walking out one Monday night against Arsenal and bearing horns with Arsene Wenger. So just that game was a surreal cup run, terrific.
And obviously, under Doz as well, we got promoted to the conference. How did the conference compare these days to when you guys got promoted in the 80s?
To the conference national.
Yes. So actually, sorry, I should have said the current name, the National League. So yeah, comparing, how's the National League compare now to how it did when you got promoted in the 80s, when it was under the name of the Football Conference?
Much more professional. When we got up with Doz, and now much more professional. I mean, the grounds are so much more well developed. The pitches are well looked after, and the players, the majority of the players, are all leaning towards being more professional, more fitter. There's lots of people. I mean, we used to go to these grounds, and they used to have like staff of like 18, 20 people doing all different sorts of jobs. It is so much more professional nowadays than it is, and the players, I can't imagine there's too many players playing in the National League that have got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go cutting trees down till sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or travelling into London to do a job, and then their recovery afterwards, all their nutrition. It's just so much, if you like, better. It's just so much different. We played our football at a different time, and it's just how everything moves on, Tom. You can't always look back and say, well, this is how it was then. Everything moves forward, and it's just much more professional these days. I think, the players probably don't understand. If you used to say to them, well, you've got to play these games, but you've also got to do a 9-to-5 job, I think they'd look at you and think, what are you talking about? Yeah. But that was how it was then. And just different times, but brilliant times, both of them.
And I actually just want to move on now to Sutton United in this day and age. We've now got Matt Graves manager, and I think Matt's had a very good first season. I think we're the direction we're going in is very promising. Got lots of good young players coming through, as well as a nucleus of players which we've had for numerous amounts of years. So I think in my opinion, there's a really good blend at the club, and hopefully when things get back to normal and Sutton United can start, and hopefully in front of crowds sooner or later as well, that will really push forward under Matt. And what are your impressions of where this side can go under Matt after, as I said, a pretty good first season, I'd say.
Well, I think it's got a really good platform. It's certainly got a good nucleus. There's a good nucleus of experienced players. You go through the existing squad of people. There's 5 or 6 players that are very experienced at this level, and then you've got young players that are being blended in who are also finding their feet. That's the problem, is getting the level of consistency. And I think we all felt it at the start. Don't get me wrong, we were playing okay, but we were losing games of football, and that was tough. And it was particularly tough for Matt. But we stood by him and supported him. And I said at the time, I think you'd see a different person in Matt Gray. We get away from this period where everybody's on top of everybody else, criticising performances, etc., etc. You'll see the true person come out, and you'll see the true person in some of the players. I can remember when we were playing, it was young, and supporters, they've got every right to criticise and shout abuse, but at the end of the day, it doesn't help. And thankfully, we came out of that period, and I think we've seen Matt as a really good young manager, proper personality, and we've also seen the players who were finding it difficult to start with when they were playing okay and getting beat. But we're now seeing the younger players, David Adjeboy. We're seeing people like that as an example who are now showing a good deal of confidence. I think what we've got to do is move on from that and recognise that they've got to be consistent. At this level of football, you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent, 8, 9 games out of 10. You can't be consistent 4 or 5 games out of 10. And that's where we've been lucky. We've had to, this year we've lost Jamie Collins. I use him as an example. Jamie Collins is a terrific player. When Paul Doswell brought him to the club, I thought this is just what is needed, someone in the changing room. But Jamie is such a consistent player, performs at a consistent level. He performed at a consistent level all the time, and I think that's where you separate the real good players from the one drifting, had 2 or 3 good games. They've got to bring in that level of consistency so that they're playing regular, sort of almost week in, week out. And that comes with a good deal of encouragement. It comes with a good deal of, helping them on their way at the start. And hopefully that's what's happened, and that will be the next step for us to get a consistency in the game. Because if I think I'm right, if we perform like we have in the last 25, 30 games, we'd be right up in the top end of the league if we'd started with that sort of consistency. So I think that there's obviously lots to work is, but that's what we aim to do.
Yeah, actually, just touching on how good a form we've been in before the lockdown. I think actually I worked out, starting from the Torquay win up until the Hartlepool game, which is the last game before the National League was suspended. We were top 5 side. If the league had started from that Torquay game to that Hartlepool game, we would have actually, would have been in, we were top 5 side comfortably in, that playoff spots, and we had, playoff form, and I think we should use that as a real platform coming into when football gets back to normal. We got a really good group of players, so I think it's a really exciting future for the club. I'm certainly looking forward to see how we develop under the manager Matt Gray and Jason Goodliffe, and hopefully see more players join this already great squad. So Should be exciting.
That's I mean, funny enough, Tom, we've been meeting the staff each week, not really talking about football too much, but we've been meeting, having games. We've been playing play your cards right, all different games with staff on Zoom and everything. And we was asking about what was the real turning point in the season, and we all felt the same way, that the Torquay game away was the real turning point, where we've been playing okay, we've been playing well, and a few occasions we were under par, but we just weren't getting the results that we deserved. But that day, when we got that result at Torquay, I think there was a sense of relief amongst everybody, and it's funny you say that as well, that was the time when everybody thought, right, okay, that's it, we've got that result that we needed, and we then kicked on from then, and there were some terrific games, some terrific performances after that, and as you say, that's what every team will be saying, Tom. They'll all be saying that if they'd have been playing their bad period, they'd be in the top seven as well, but it's not easy to do that, but certainly there's a good platform for the club to move forward.
Certainly. So there's a few questions on the live chat. So Jane Osgood has said, hope to see you in a lift in Halifax car park again soon. Laughing emoji. Miss everyone. Also, where did the nickname Abel come from?
The nickname Abel? Right, I've got to be honest about this. So when I was a young man, I never had a very good dress sense. Probably people will say you still haven't got any dress sense, Mick. But when I was young, I used to think that it was quite fashionable to wear some odd clothes when I used to turn up for games. And one week I turned up in a bright blue double-breasted blazer with like gold buttons all across it and patches, and I looked like a naval sea captain. And someone shouted out, Abel Seaman Stevens, and that's where it started. And to be honest, I think probably 75% of the people that I know in my life call me by the name Abel. But yeah, that's where that one came from. Pretty shocking dress sense, I'm afraid.
And a question from Sahil, obviously, quite well. He said, Micky, hope you're well. Did you ever fancy playing at the next level in the pyramid?
Well, I did have a couple of opportunities. I'll tell you about this. So when I got into the England semi-pro setup, I was selected to play for England semi-pro, and we went away on one of the trips we went up to Lillishall, which was the football centre, and we played Shrewsbury in a friendly prior to a game that we had we went on a trip to Gibraltar, and prior to that trip to Gibraltar we played Shrewsbury, and I played game, and we played a half-hour game, and I scored 2 goals, played well, and someone sidled up to me and said, I'm from Shrewsbury Town. I wondered if you'd be interested in having a chat with us about perhaps coming in for some training. I said, well, hang on a minute. I said, I think you need to do this all properly. And then that moved on, and I spoke to them via someone, an agent or something, and I said, can you find out from them what sort of money we'd be looking at? Because I was, at the time, I was like 24 or 25. I was married. I had a good job in the bank. And the money that they offered was almost derisory. I would have been taking a massive pay cut and moving away from where I was settled with a young child. And that was Shrewsbury. There was another opportunity around about the same time with Cardiff City, and it was the same thing. I don't know quite why Cardiff. I don't think they were doing very well at the time, but they were pretty strong sort of offers that we'd like to consider signing you and for you to go pro. But it's just financially, it really wouldn't have made sense for me. I think looking back, if I'd have been single, I'd have loved to have had a go at it. But it was a tough decision for me to even explore it any further when I was married, had a young child and had a good job and was like 24, 25, where I wouldn't have had a massive amount of years in the game at that level. But as I say, I regret that if I was single. I don't regret it now because I enjoyed mine immensely. I think I played as high as I could at non-league level, and I would have liked to in another world have had a go at professional football, but that wasn't to be.
Can you talk to me about your 5 caps at England semi-pro level?
Yeah, there's 7 actually, Tom.
Oh, 7. Oh, okay, I've got misinformation here.
Was that Frankie again?
I got this information sent me from Tony. I'm not sure if it was information that Tony had or that Frankie sent it to him, so I'm not sure about that actually. But there you go.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I got picked. We played it. I was sort of talking. There was all suggestions that I was near the squad, etc., etc. And we played one night at Harrow Borough, and we played there. I played well. I scored a really good goal, and my dad used to drive me home from all the games. Jumped in the back of his van, and he was like my biggest fan. He still is my biggest fan and my biggest critic. And he used to say to me, "Yeah, you've done all right tonight. Even if I'd played absolutely superb, he'd say, yeah, you've done okay, but you should have done this, you should have done that." And he said to me, "Yeah, you actually played quite well tonight." And I thought, "Oh, that's a bit odd." He said, "I've played quite well." He said, "Yeah." He said, I think you have played quite well." He said, "Well, Barry Williams said you played well anyway." And he said, "Apparently you're in the England squad." So I heard it from my dad on the way home from Harrow that I was in that one. And we went to Gibraltar, I was saying earlier. Got my goal. We won 3-2. We played on a pitch of sand. And I got my goal on my debut for England. And then I went on to play in the tournament against Holland, Scotland, and I think it was Ireland, and Italy. Holland, Italy, and Scotland up at Aberdeen. And then the following year, I got married, and they used to go away for so many sessions, like 15 sessions for your tournament. And there was one session I couldn't make because I was getting married. And I got selected for the squad, and I had to write back saying, "Unfortunately, I can't make one of the sessions, but I hope that you can overlook that." And they wrote back and said, "No, you have to attend all the sessions." So I was really annoyed about that. So I was determined to get back to the squad, and then the following year I got back into the squad again, and I could make all the sessions. I got another 3 caps that year when we played 3 friendlies. But it was a real eye opener. I mean, we used to, we were playing at Sutton. I loved it at Sutton, but the other clubs were bigger clubs then than Sutton, that were in non-league, and it sort of showed me that Sutton was really a good club, fighting, punching well above its weight in the non-league games. Some of these players were already sort of moving towards full time even then. But yeah, I enjoyed that. I got 7 caps, so something to look back on.
Brilliant stuff. So you finished your career with 552 appearances and 43 goals, as well as putting the free kick that Mark Golly scored, and both your corners produced goals against Coventry. So just sum up to finish it off. What were your thoughts on just the career you had? Because that 550 appearances is that's a lot of appearances to have in the game.
Yeah, enough goals. It's a poor goals return. I've got to say, it's a poor goals return. But I think I've probably made a lot of goals over the years. But I've got to say, it's a poor goal return. I couldn't quite master. Getting more goals in the season. I was always happy. I always got a good feeling out of assisting a goal, but I never quite got that bit about being a goal scorer as well. I think in those days it was more you were a wide player. You know, the modern day wide player is a different wide player to the wide players that played in my. It was all about assists and crosses then, whereas nowadays there's a definite need for the wide players to be attacking players as well and to score goals as well, to chip in with more goals than perhaps I did. But yeah.
Brilliant stuff. One last question that's come from James King, the live chat. Do you enjoy getting back on the pitch during the Tash Cup games?
I do actually. I'm wondering whether I'll quite actually we will be allowed out to play that game this year. But I do actually enjoy that game. I probably don't round too much, which is quite helpful. And I'm sure Bobby Charles and Seth Brown will remind everyone that I don't normally move outside of the centre circle. But I do enjoy getting back on the pitch. I'm not quite sure whether my knees will allow me to do that for many more years. But while I enjoy it, I mean, it's nice to see everyone, particularly to remember John. But I still do. I'll try and keep myself fit by playing tennis and badminton, as I'm telling you. So I'm hoping I'll keep myself fit enough to play a few more games and get back out on the pitch when we'll return to some sort of normality. I'm not sure when that'll be, Tom, but good.
Well, Micky, I've thoroughly enjoyed interviewing you tonight. You've been great company. Really enjoyed listening to your stories on what was certainly an eventful career for yourself. So yeah, really appreciate your time this evening, Micky.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you taking the time to keep the fires burning on there. So keep going. You're doing a good job. Keep everyone out there.
Brilliant. So thanks very much, Micky.
All right, Tom. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, Micky. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the evening. All right.
Thank you, mate. Bye.
Well, there you go. I really hope you guys have enjoyed that. Thanks for getting involved in the live chat. Before I go, this week, Ahmed's interviewing Efan Ikoku. As Micky actually mentioned in the interview, that'll be on Tuesday. Then Thursday, we've got the big quiz. I think that's going to be the best show, in my opinion. That looks to be the best show for this week. So yeah, we'll put more details on our socials about that on Twitter, SUFCtv, and if you're on the Amber Planet forum, we'll put it on there as well. I think Greg Clark's going to be hosting that, and I'll be back a week today interviewing Mark Frake, who again got some mentions on this interview. You'd probably say Mr. Sutton United with his knowledge, so I look forward to picking his brains about that. So yeah, we've got some really exciting shows ahead for this coming week. So that's it for now. Really appreciate you guys viewing tonight. Again, have a good rest of the evening, what we've got left before we head back into Monday. And yeah, thanks for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Bye for now.